Love thorns all over this rose. Written by Leica Static. Read by Rashi. Navia has always been in tune with her surroundings, what people need, and what emotions her heart screams. She's a smart girl. She knew that well. Maybe that's why she ended up here, sitting on the plush blue couch of the Palais Marmonia after Sigewin's invitation to try out her new medicinal tea. She can't reject her, even if she's so tired from her work. As usual, she's dragged Clorinde along with her. Well, she really didn't tell her to, but the latter insisted. After the whole trial fiasco about her father, Clorinde seemed to have taken responsibility for being her bodyguard every time she stepped foot in the court of Fontaine. She rejected that idea, not really enjoying the thought of a friend becoming her bodyguard, but with Clorinde's stubborn attitude, she rarely gave in. In a way, she was glad to give her Spino di Lucula guards a break whenever she was away from Pousson.
So, I made some tea with added more maritime flowers. It's really refreshing.
Sigewin smiled, offering 3 cups to the girl sitting on the couch.
Wanna try some?
The calm atmosphere of her mind was replaced by a sudden panic deep inside of her the moment her hands that reached for the tea were stopped by her companion's gloved hand, a small precaution to not take the tea yet. Navia nodded slightly, swallowing the constricting feeling up her throat. Clorinde was probably preventing Navia from getting poisoned, but it sure was enough to send her into a mental spiral. Why is her heart beating? Has she been poisoned and didn't notice? Is she having a heart attack? She fought many times in her life, yet a simple, protective touch could make her panic. That's odd, she thought, but shrugged it off. Maybe it's just her lack of sleep from these days getting to her. She should get some rest when she gets home. Despite her initial hesitation, Lynette's approving nod was the only thing she needed to sip the tea. Almost too willingly. A vain attempt to try to swallow the erratic beating of her heart, too. An action which she, undoubtedly, regretted the moment the liquid graced her lips. She grimaced, forcing a smile to not offend Sigewin. The last thing she would want to do is see the little one be upset. Of course! Why, didn't you say it was so bitter? Lynette shrugged. Her unchanging reaction had her, and Clorinde, be taken for fools. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, was the gray-haired girl's only response, making Navia sigh. Of course, Lynette could care less about anything at all.
Well, the important thing is that it works.
Sigewin's laugh was enough to at least alleviate the stinging, bitter aftertaste of the tea, which she had already put down. It may not be to her tastes, but Sigewin surely has the best of intentions. However, the tea surely did not help with the continuing feeling inside her, a feeling that only doubled as she glanced at her side, the small smile that emerged from the purple-haired girl's face seeming to add to the dizziness too. Just what is going on with me? Are you all right? After the eventful taste testing with Sigewin, the walk back home was uneventful. Other than the occasional greetings from strangers on the way, nothing much seemed to occupy her mind, maybe except for her companion, who silently walking by her, eyes occasionally giving her a slightly concerned glance. Navia cleared her throat before nodding. Yeah, I'm all right. Just a bit dizzy, I guess. She laughed, trying to play it off, but Clorinde didn't let it slide. Is it perhaps because of the tea? I can tell Sigewin to lessen the bitterness next time. Her concern is imminent, and Navia, being the considerate person she is, shook her head. That won't do. She's trying to help others, and that's enough. They finally reached her boat to take her back to Pousson, and she glanced back at her companion, who watched her intently. You need to stop worrying about me, Clorinde. I can handle it. The other girl just sighed and held her hand, assisting her up the boat. In a way, it has become my responsibility. This girl. Always so stubborn. Navia smiled. My father would be happy if he sees you all protective over me now. She leaned on the boat's railing. But seriously, I'm okay. The Spina takes good care of me. If you say so. Her boat went away, her smile unfaltering as she waved at Clorinde. The latter's hair flew elegantly as the sea breeze graced their presence. Even from afar, Navia could see how her eyes sparkled against the light. She remembered the way it lit up with concern when she told her about the accident with the primordial water. Clorinde kept asking her for at least an hour or two if she was okay, offering her assistance in whatever she did. She's not fond of being dependent on others, but Clorinde's insistence was touching. The way she'd immediately be alert when Navia did anything was enough for the blonde girl to smile. Navia sighed. Just what is this feeling brewing up in her chest? No, she probably just needed a rest. Boss, you're here! One of the members of the Spina rushed to her side the moment she stepped foot in Busan. Is everything all right? Yes. It's just that the traveler has sent you a gift. Her worry was soon replaced by excitement, evident in the way she gasped, and ran to where she was being headed. Her attendant followed her. Boss, please be careful! She just laughed. Try to keep up! In a way, maybe that's what made her so likable to the people residing in Busan, and what made her be loved by the people in the Spina. Navia is carefree, kind, and considerate, always up for fun, and includes her people in it. Maybe that's why Clorinde stuck by her side too. What am I even thinking about? Upon reaching headquarters, she is greeted by a box with a bouquet of Cecilias inside. Alongside it was a note. I visited Mondstadt recently, and Paimon thought we'd send you guys a gift. Send my regards to the rest of the gang. The Traveler and their amazing companion Paimon. Navia laughed. Aw, I can even hear their voices just by reading this. I hope they visit Fontaine again soon. She carefully put the note down and picked up the flowers. The scent is sweet, reminiscent of freedom and unbound bliss. Please, put these in a vase for me. I'll be giving these to our friends tomorrow, she said, handing the bouquet to her attendant, who gladly nodded at her. The sigh that escaped her as soon as she plopped onto her chair was enormous. It felt like a whole week's stress she piled out that she never expected. Not to mention, this added dilemma with Clorinde still confuses her. In matters like this, she would usually have tea with the Traveler, or with Clorinde herself. But with the latter being the topic at hand, that option is off the table. You seem stressed, boss, her attendant said, preparing a cup of tea after he arranged the flowers. Navia nodded. It's that evident, huh? She sipped on the tea, a breath of fresh air from the bitter one earlier. Should I cancel your appointments for tomorrow so you can rest? She could hear a hint of worry in her attendant's voice, which she rejected. Oh, no, that won't do. It's all right. She shook her head and smiled, hoping to erase the worries of her attendant. In fact, please, help me prepare a little something. I'll be visiting a friend tomorrow. Flowers and macarons? What a surprise! Is everything okay? Farina's confusion is evident the moment Navia appears on her doorstep. The previous Hydra Archon's house is quaint and quiet, perfect for someone who wants peace after a lifetime of not knowing what it is. Navia hummed, looking around the house while Farina went to place the flowers in a vase. The Traveler brought those. I figured I'd share them with you guys too. There was hesitation in her voice, which Farina picked up. Should we discuss something over tea? After a few minutes of Farina's hushed "Ows!" from the hot water, she and Navia sat across from each other, silence ensuing between them, which Farina tried to break through the small crunch of each macaron she ate. You've known Clorinde for a long time, right? Navia asked. Farina nodded, wiping her mouth before answering. That I do. Why?
If she asked you to convince me to let her be my bodyguard, that'll be an immediate no from me,"
she replied, shaking her head, as if the thought of Clorinde's request ails her. Navia giggled. "She did mention that, but it's not what I came here for." She sighed. Farina's eyes stared at her intently. Confusion etched on her face. "It's just that, recently, I've been distracted." "Distracted by Clorinde?" "Not exactly. I have a feeling it's just my mind playing tricks on me. But there's this feeling in me every time I think about her." Navia trailed off, finding the right word to say in hopes that Farina could grasp the entirety of the situation. "I don't know, really. I just kept thinking about all the times she protected me." There are countless moments that flashed in her mind, where Clorinde stepped in the way just to protect her. She would reason that it's due to how much she respects Navia's father. However, there's a feeling, maybe her intuition, or wishful thinking, that maybe Clorinde is doing it for her alone. For Navia alone.
"Navia?"
Farina's voice took her away from her thoughts.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?"
Farina leaned against her couch, her lips pursed, deep in thought.
"I guess I can see your predicament. Oh, finally. Clorinde can be quite the enigma. Really, she's strong, loyal, and a bit stoic at times. It's not surprising you'd find yourself drawn to her."
Farina replied, her hands gesturing the air elegantly.
"So, this is normal?"
Navia asked. She's confused if her voice emits relief or a sense of dejection. Farina hummed in reply, smiling a little from the way Navia's hands held her teacup a bit too tightly.
"Well, there's certainly another way to explain all of this." "Really?"
Farina hummed, sipping her tea before replying.
"Maybe.
You like her?" "Of course I like her. She's a friend." Navia's response almost made Farina groan. For years, she served as an archon. These types of conversations from her followers weren't avoided. She knows these kinds of things really well.
My dear Miss Navia, I meant romantically. In the way where you'd kiss her under 1,000 stars if given the chance. Like those soft melodramas I've seen people perform. A classic tale to be told."
Wait, what? There's no way. Navia and Clorinde are friends. They have been for ages. To think she'd see a close friend under that image was enough to make her pause from her tea time and think thoroughly.
"Do I? Actually?"
Farina noticed the silence that followed and tried her best to give Navia a small smile.
"Romantic love is not something I've encountered. At least, not to myself."
She laughed, reminiscing the days during her performances when admirers would flock to her.
"But for years of acting as an archon, I've seen people like this, in a state of confusion. I understand that. I can't possibly ruin a friendship I've had for years."
Farina smiled warmly.
Matters of the heart can be quite the puzzle, can't they? First, you must understand your own feelings. Are you looking for companionship, admiration, or something deeper? Once you have clarity on that, you can decide how to approach Clorinde.
The visit with Farina may be short, but it sure was worthwhile. As much as she hated it, she needed to go and continue her errands. For the whole day, she walked around the court of Fontaine, giving her friends the flowers that the traveler gave. It seemed uneventful to the eyes of strangers, but her thoughts were far from that. The usual understanding she had with herself, with her feelings, all came crashing down. Even the wisest ones sometimes need a person to make them see who they truly are. Right? A person to break through that tough exterior. A person to reveal the complex amalgamation of emotions. A person whose mere touch can send a million electrifying shocks all throughout. A person like her.
A person like Clorinde.
With the only flower left in her hand, she watched the way her purple hair swayed from the breeze, the way her eyes fixated on the swan who danced across the water, the way her usually stiff hands grew nimble, tapping away on clean marble. Navia sighed.
Maybe Farina was right.
Her footsteps seemed light, the more she got closer to her, like a cloud floating up the sky. If she's being honest, it feels like she's falling so hard that she'd only wish her companion would be right there, catching her with open arms. Navia? Something the matter?
Yes, me. Not much. Just thought I'd drop by and give this flower the traveler sent me last night.
Ah, she hoped Clorinde didn't notice the way her palms sweat as she handed the sweet-scented flower. Ah, thank you. Silence ensued afterward. The only sounds that accompanied the setting sun were the flapping of birds, the sound of shoes against concrete, and the low whispers of people. Did she notice? The way Navia's eyes lingered on her as the flower found its way into her companion's hand. The way Navia's eyes lit up every time they saw each other. The way Navia's hand lingered at each touch. Small things, minuscule details. Details that Navia herself ignored, until it all felt too much for it to explode. She feels like she can't breathe. Clorinde looked at her. Archons, she shouldn't have. The way her eyes were etched with concern was enough for another mental spiral for the blonde. Is everything all right? Ah, and that voice, that stoic, intimidating voice that made others run away in fear, made her want to close whatever distance between them and just hold her close. So close, she could suffocate from it. Clorinde's hands reached out to her forehead, trying to check if she was all right, or if she had a fever. Navia couldn't deny that. It does feel like a fever dream right now. She thought about those hands that were holding a delicate flower, the same hands that wielded weapons just to protect her.
I like you.
The final light of the sun and the far-off caws of the birds flew with the wind. The silence between her and Clorinde is deafening.
Please say something. Please say something.
Clorinde's stillness reminded her of the unmoving water in the lakes of Fontaine, so still at all that you'd wonder what mystery it has been hiding underneath.
Oh, Archons, I shouldn't have said that.
She laughed awkwardly, trying to play it off.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to blurt it out. That was so inelegant of me.
In her mind, the only solution is to leave right now and possibly lock herself in her room from utter embarrassment. Wait, Navia.
Here, please, just forget whatever I said. I'll send some compensatory macarons for tomorrow and...
Her words were cut off with the warmth of Clorinde's lips against hers. It was a peck, so chaste, so sudden, so out of the blue. Her reddened cheeks seemed more evident under the moonlight, which she tried to hide. Clorinde looked at her, a small smile on her lips. Maybe it was a trick of the light, a hallucination of her mind. Or maybe it was real. Maybe the second kiss she initiated was real. Maybe this was all real. The kiss broke, and a breathy laughter emerged from the blonde, which was reciprocated by a small smile from her company. Should I take you up on the compensatory macarons tomorrow?